Hello everyone, and welcome back for the last segment of Adobe Live for the day, but not the last streaming day of the week. We still have tons more content coming up later tomorrow, which we're super excited about, but I am here joined with Reza Farazmand.
Thank you for having me back.
Going to be doing some awesome comic strips and stuff today, and I'm super excited to see what's going to be going on today because we get kind of like an exclusive look at his comic strips and stuff that he posts on social media. Before we jump into it though, let's do some reminders. You guys know we always have the chat and wins going on. Today we are going to be giving out a cool Tatley pack to one lucky active person in chat. So if you are over on YouTube, head over to behance.net/live and chill with us over here in this chat. This is where we're reading the chat, where you got to be if you want a chance to win some cool prizes. We also have a challenge going on. We've got one more deadline for the day to make it in for your chance to win a whole year of Creative Cloud, which is super, super awesome. If you guys want some more details on that, check out the challenge tab above the chat pod for more information. And also don't forget to check out the daily creative challenge, because those are going on right now as well. But let's talk about you now. I'm super excited. Why don't we do like a little introduction for those folks that weren't here yesterday, and then maybe a recap of kind of what you worked on yesterday, Reza.
Sure. So I'm Reza Farazmand. I draw a comic strip called Poorly Drawn Lines that you may have seen on the internet at some point. Yesterday I drew the comic that I actually posted this morning, which you can see right now if you go to my Instagram or Facebook or
pull it up
just the internet in general.
Too Much Coffee.
There it is, Too Much Coffee. So that's the one that I drew live yesterday. And it's doing pretty good so far. It's doing some numbers. And so yeah, right now I'm gonna draw Friday's comic, so you can get a sneak peek and kind of see where it's at. I'm starting a little bit ahead of where I started yesterday. I've actually already inked the panels, you can see. And so I'm just gonna ink all of the stuff inside of the panels, like the characters and the words and whatnot.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I guess I'll kind of get down to that.
Yeah, just jump right into it. You've got like a nice kind of 4-panel one going on today. This is cool.
So yesterday was a 3-panel, today's is a 4-panel. And I can kind of probably explain my decision a little bit to do that. I don't know if you can see too well what the joke is at this point, but once it's all inked up, it'll be a little bit easier to see. It's
kind of cool like this though, because you can see it very faintly, but as you kind of go through your process, it'll sort of reveal itself to the audience, which is really cool. Yeah.
It's like invisible ink or something. But what I'm actually using here is blue graphite pencil, which I explained yesterday I use because I'm able to remove the color blue in Photoshop using like a CMYK trick, which I will demonstrate again today.
Very excited about that. I need to see it again for myself, for my own future reference.
And blue lead pencils are something that, it's a trick that cartoonists have been using for a long time, like decades and decades. And I know that even artists who work purely digitally these days still use blue like pencil strokes within whatever program they're using. And I'm not sure if that is for the same reason, maybe it's just like kind of sticking to tradition, but
I've talked to a few people that I've seen actually like working in Photoshop and like Sketch and everything doing the blue, and they said that they did the traditional sketching for so long that now that they're in digital, it's just one of the things that kind of carried over for them, where they're just used to seeing it in blue first and then bringing it to that finished point.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And it's also, I guess, if you're like penciling first, even digitally, it's kind of nice to have like a separate color for when you ink it over. So it's like distinguished a little bit.
Kind of gives it that final sharpness when you hit it with the black ink.
Yeah, totally.
Which is really cool.
And you can like see your sketch lines and kind of whatever, if you want to do something differently.
Yeah, for sure.
This comic has 2 ants that are talking to each other, and you'll be able to see them more clearly.
We actually have a question from Jan Eric. He
Jan?
says, how does Reza decide on the location and size of the bubbles and placement of the characters?
guess it's not really a conscious decision specifically. It's more like I just like the way they're laid out. Like sometimes they'll be centered, sometimes they'll be a little bit to the left or the right. In this case, I have two like very small characters in the first panel, so I just centered them. And then this character on the left, the speech bubble is moved to the left, so it's clear that this character is the one voicing that first bubble.
Right on.
So you can kind of tell without even seeing like where the balloon tail is or whatever you'd call that. These are like very technical, artistic terms I'm using here, balloon tail.
The balloon tail.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about though, so it's fine.
And then in this last panel, you can see this balloon is like a little bit to the left above this one because I want this one to be read first. So there's two balloons in this panel and I want to make sure that this one is read first. So the one that I want to be read first, I typically will want to shift it as far to the left as possible because I guess most Western readers typically read left to right. But if it can't be, like let's say a character on the left is saying something as well and then the character on the right is saying the first thing, I'll just put it above and like as far to the left as I can, so it's clear that which one you're supposed to read first. And I think it's typically pretty clear.
Yeah, I actually like, because I noticed too, like kind of tagging on to the end as far as like your placement of your characters, you typically seem to leave like a lot of empty space sometimes in a lot of the cells, but it's really kind of charming in its own way to do it that way because it kind of adds to like the bleak humor of the comic strip sometimes when it's like that.
It's like for instance in this left panel, it's supposed to be like a moment of him just thinking or not thinking and kind of like feeling a little bit like on the spot. And so it's like that emptiness kind of conveys it. And I really like just having blank white space as much as possible to kind of keep the design simple and make sure that the focus is on like the one character, like the one thing that you're supposed to see in that panel. I think it's probably pretty clear by now that I don't put a lot of detail into my work. And that initially was because I wasn't, I didn't feel confident enough in my artistic skills to draw a lot of detail work or backgrounds. But then it really just became a part of my style. And I spoke yesterday a little bit about how I really like to minimize the content of the comics as much as possible, so the focus is on the jokes and it's like really succinct and to the point. And that goes for the writing and it also goes for the artwork.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's kind of very similar to how you were talking about formulating what they're actually going to say. It's kind of like simplifying it down to like that core structure and that so it's very like it quickly gets to the point. And it's kind of represented there in the writing and in the artwork and in the placement of everything in the composition. It's really cool.
So I hope that comes across pretty clearly. You'll also see while I'm inking, I'm like turning the paper around a lot. That's because I typically like to be pushing my pen when I'm inking, because I find that the pen stroke and the lines are more even if I'm always moving the pen in one direction.
Noel says, literally in the middle of watching yesterday's replay of these two cool cats do the first drawing while watching this live stream too. Liveception.
Whoa. That's pretty ambitious, Noel.
That's dedication. I'm flattered. I don't know about you. Julian, hello, welcome in. It's good to see you. There's so many familiar faces. It's good to see you, Jan Eric. It's good to see you, Eric Sue. All of you regulars as well as all of you new folks. Hi from Scotland. Big fan of Kevin and Ernesto. Awesome, Gary.
Scotland. I was in Scotland last summer.
Awesome.
Or sorry, last winter.
But that was nice. I'd love to go to Scotland.
Yeah, I love Scotland. I've been there a couple times in the past few years.
Oh man, I want to go to Scotland and Ireland real bad. That'd be great. Good inspiration for artwork.
My mom is from Edinburgh, actually.
Oh, very cool.
So I have family there, so I try to visit as much as I can.
Awesome.
My cousin got married on the Isle of Bute a couple years ago, and I was a groomsman in his wedding, and I got to wear a kilt.
No way! Yep. That is so cool.
It was really cool.
That sounds like it was a lot of fun.
It was.
Katera, what's up? Good to see you. Welcome in. Zachary is in chat and says he saw you talk in NYC last year.
Oh, nice.
Very
At Strand
cool.
Bookstore?
Yeah, he was a high school student there to see you.
Well, thanks for coming by, Zachary. I hope you liked the talk.
Yeah, JP also sketches upside down. I think that you kind of have to, you really have to move things around because I think naturally people kind of have like the most comfortable way to actually make the stroke. Mm-hmm. And even when I'm, painting digitally, I have that R hotkey like right there where I can just rotate. Rotate it around and do things, because sometimes just you only really have like one direction where it's like a really strong swipe sometimes, and you just have to do that.
I was watching Shauna work on some lettering last night, mm-hmm. and I noticed that she was also like rotating her canvas quite a bit.
Totally,
so it was probably the same idea.
Mm-hmm. With her characters today as well. We do have about 45 minutes until the challenge deadline, and it is the final challenge deadline of the week, actually. Tomorrow we will not have challenges, aside from the daily creative challenge that will be going on. During stream, we're actually going to be doing portfolio reviews at the end of each segment, which is going to be really awesome. So you and I, Reza, will get to look through a couple of portfolios that are submitted and kind of give some feedback on some other illustrations and stuff.
Nice. I hope there's some comics in there.
Yeah, hopefully. So if you guys do some illustration, if you guys are comic artists and want to spruce up your portfolios on Behance real quick, definitely submit it, because we'd love to take a look.
All right, so I've got all the speech balloons done, and I can already see like a few squiggles and imperfections that I'm gonna have to correct in Photoshop using the warp tool. Like this one is angled up and to the left. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'll be correcting that just like I did yesterday.
Kind of making everything a little more uniform.
Yeah, a little bit more uniform.
I loved that, because I think it kind of goes to what we were talking about yesterday, where like you see like the simple line work of the piece, and you don't realize like just how much work goes into making it look the way it does. It's kind of like people who have just like excellent, fantastic, messy hairdos, but you don't realize they stood in front of the mirror for like an hour trying to make it look as casual and awesome as it does. Totally. It's very much like that, and it's really awesome to see the process for this, because I never would have guessed, like how particular you are about the lines, which is cool.
Yeah. Okay, so you might be able to see that these are ants now. You can see their bodies a little bit. Honestly, one of the hardest things to draw I've found is insect legs.
Really?
They can come out,
making them look awkward?
Yeah, they can just look like really messy or something. I also used to, when I drew ants, I would draw their legs like on, I think they would go like range from like their thorax to their, whatever you call this, or no, abdomen and thorax, like they would be on both parts. And I remember somebody commenting like, all the legs are supposed to be on the middle section of the body. And I made that mistake again, and then that same commenter commented like again, like several more times until I finally corrected
I'm sorry.
it. Like,
I'm sorry,
like,
but this is not accurate.
Yeah.
This is not anatomically
exactly.
correct.
So now I do them all like as anatomically correct as I can.
Well, I think they look like great ants.
Yeah, thank you.
Yusuf, yes, it is Voodoo with the designer. Indeed. I'm usually in chat, but I get to host this week, so I'm on camera. Simon says, I can't draw very well, but I love incorporating speech bubbles into my work from time to time. Let's see, we got like Joseph wants to know what your favorite comics were as a child.
Favorite comics? I read a lot of like the Sunday comics and newspaper comics were most of what I read. I remember really liking Peanuts, of course.
Oh yeah, totally.
And Peanuts was even kind of winding down by the time I read it, and I think at some point when I was a kid, Shell's retired, and a lot of them started to be like reruns or whatever, but he has such a huge body of work that I hadn't seen like even a quarter of them anyway.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's massive.
I also remember really liking Pearls Before Swine.
Never heard of that.
It was another newspaper comic, and it felt a little bit like edgier and darker than a lot of the other comics that were in the newspaper.
Right on. So you just gravitated towards that?
Yeah, I gravitated toward that, and then I really liked I can't remember the name. Oh, Foxtrot was a good one by Bill Amend.
Jimmy's saying Calvin and Hobbes is a good one.
Yeah, Calvin and Hobbes is
Obviously,
great.
yeah.
So for some reason, as a kid, I missed that completely. I think it was out of the newspapers by the time I like really became aware of newspaper comics. But then I would always see like the collections at my friends' houses and stuff.
Right on.
But then, yeah, so I loved newspaper strip comics. And then when I really got into comics is when I discovered webcomics, like Perry Bible Fellowship and XKCD, like sometime around like late high school, early college.
Very cool.
Hark of Vagrant, Saturday Morning Breakfast Cereal, if I didn't name that already. There's a lot of great ones, and a lot of those artists are still like super active and posting stuff all the time.
Jan Eric wants to know if you've heard of Patrick McDonald's Mutts. He says the humor of that is very reminiscent of yours.
Definitely heard of Mutts. Mutts is like a long-running newspaper strip. I'm sure that's one that I read. I think it was it like a cat and a dog that were always kind of at each other's throat? I can't remember.
Garfield. Oh yeah, totally, Jonas. It's a classic.
Garfield was always there too.
Do you have any like older cartoons or TV shows that inspired you when you were younger as well?
Yeah, I've watched a lot of I don't know, like Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon cartoons.
Same.
Scooby-Doo reruns were always good. And were like always on. What else? I liked a lot of like, let's see, there was a comic or a cartoon called Street Sharks that was super weird, and it was like
I remember that very vaguely.
It was some strange, like, there was a period in the 90s where like they were doing these weird Ninja Turtle kind of ripoffs. So there was one that was, I think, Biker Mice from Mars, which was, and then Street Sharks, and they were all basically just animals that somehow got mutated into like human-esque animals and then fought crime. So
yes, basically like a direct rip of
the Ninja Turtles. And I of course love Ninja Turtles, and I really liked the live-action Ninja Turtles too.
Oh yeah, totally. I grew up watching that Ninja Turtles and also the X-Men.
Oh yeah,
cartoon that was on for a while. Yeah.
X-Men and is it Batman and Beyond? That's a classic. I would like come home after school and watch that.
There was also for a while there was a Stormship Troopers TV show for kids. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that film, the Stormship Troopers, where they like fight the bugs.
Oh, Starship Troopers?
Yeah, Starship Troopers. Sorry,
I didn't know that was a cartoon.
Yeah, there was like a kid show on around the same time that was for Starship Troopers, and it was so cool. And like there was like a point in my life where me and my siblings were running around like, yeah, Rico, like running around trying to find things that looked like armor so we could romp around with that. But it was around that same time frame. Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, I really love like 90s cartoons. I also liked Doug. That
oh,
was a good
totally.
One.
Absolutely.
Doug, I think Doug might even still be on in some iteration. I know it switched over to Disney Channel at some point from Nickelodeon.
I met a gentleman about 2 weeks ago who was dressed as Quail Man.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah.
I dressed as Quail Man for Halloween one year.
It's a great costume.
Yeah.
Honestly.
So I'm using my paper cutter right now, my trusty paper cutter, to cut this down to scanner size.
Awesome.
So I usually I don't have to cut off that much. And then I'm gonna put this in my scanner. So if you didn't get a chance to like look at the fully inked product, there it is.
That's awesome.
One aunt is saying he loves music, and the other aunt's like, which music? And then the first aunt can't remember any music all of a sudden. And he's like, name one. Which, I mean, I think we've all had that happen to us at some
totally.
point.
We were just talking about that yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, actually, this exact thing is what we're doing tomorrow.
Stay tuned. And going back to cartoons, since I love those so much, I have two younger siblings, so who I would babysit. We're all 4 years apart, so my youngest brother is 8 years younger than me. So I would babysit them, and as an added bonus, that meant that I got to like watch all the cartoons that I probably would have aged out of at some point, because I would sit and babysit them, and so I got to enjoy like SpongeBob and Fairly Odd Parents and stuff.
SpongeBob is actually like just a gift. Like
Yeah.
the older, like when it first started coming out, those episodes were phenomenal.
Yeah,
actually,
they're incredible, definitely. And they were like, I don't know, there's just, they would do like these weird close-ups and then all of a sudden their faces would get like really realistic. And like, yeah.
Yes.
That was just like a great running gag. I also loved the narrator who would come in with like his super monotone voice and be
2
like,
hours later.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So much good stuff.
I was a big fan of Real Monsters.
Oh,
Have you
yeah.
ever watched
I
that?
love that one, too,
That
yeah.
was a good one. And there was a really weird show that was on. I actually pulled it up to watch like a week ago because I was going through like on I think it was like Netflix or something that had got like a bunch of cartoons. So I was like, I'm gonna check this out. Did you ever see that show Kablam?
Yep.
That was crazy, and it had
Yeah.
like the Prometheus and Bob
Yeah.
on there, and
That
like
was
all
like
the different shows.
Robot Chicken for kids
Yes.
before Robot Chicken was even invented.
Exactly, it
was
was
great.
crazy, and they had all different kinds of shows on there. There was like 2D animation, there was like claymation and stop animation, and all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff. And I think the premise was it was those 2 kids were like the host of an actual comic book, and they would turn the pages and like show you all the different stories that were in the comic book
Oh.
every week. And I
don't
didn't
remember
realize
like the context really.
I
just
didn't
remember
remember
the
it
action
either.
figures and
It was weird to pull it up again and realize, oh, that's why all this weird stuff was happening, because
Yeah.
I didn't get it when I was a kid. I was just watching all the crazy stuff happen, but that was a good one too.
I realized I probably should have narrated what I just did there in case people didn't see it yesterday. I can just kind of run through those steps one more time.
Yeah,
So
go for it.
File, import. This is if you're working with the scanner, WIA support, and that brings up your scanning devices. Select the one you want, and then I use custom settings, and I scan at 600 DPI. I explained this yesterday. I use like a really high resolution because I like to blow up my work for merchandise, like t-shirts and prints and stuff. And scanning at as high a resolution as possible means that those there's no like artifacting or loss of quality once you blow it up like that, without having to vectorize it. I feel like vectorizing a piece of hand-drawn artwork sometimes kind of takes away some of the like realness, like the grittiness of the pen work, because it just makes like really smooth strokes. So I like to maintain that kind of like those gritty pen strokes as much as possible. Oh, and wait, I should probably explain this too. So right
So many
now,
awesome steps.
I just converted to CMYK from, I think it was scanned in as a bitmap. And then I hit Command U to bring up hue and saturation. And then I grab my cyan and I bring the saturation all the way to the left and lightness all the way to the right. And you can see the image already changing. So see those like dark pen strokes are suddenly gone.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna do the same thing with the blues. That's a little bit less dramatic. There's not as much happening on that one, but
it's still like slowly kind of chipping away at it and making it just the black and white.
just cleaning it up. And then the same thing with the magentas. And you can do the reds and yellows and greens too if you want, but I don't think it's necessary. Okay, and then I'm gonna go ahead and convert to grayscale. This is the part 2, discard color information. And then I'm gonna bring up my curves, and I'm gonna bring the left handle to the edge of the first square on the left here. And then I'm gonna bring the right handle to the bottom of this hill.
Right on.
And I think you can bring it a little bit further if you want. I typically just bring it right around here, sometimes a little bit more to the left. Yeah, and then in case you didn't see, that pretty much has taken away, or that like darkens the blacks and makes it look like a little bit more crisp.
Definitely.
So
That's
now
awesome.
it looks more like how it looked when I drew it on paper, basically like ink on paper, rather than having all those artifacts and like background noise and imperfections and stuff that
You
come
still
from
got
scanning it.
Yeah, still got the nice texture for the lines and
Yeah,
everything.
so I can zoom in a little bit. Like you can still see there's a lot of like grittiness from where the pen strokes were, and it looks a little bit more like it would actually look. Yeah.
The ant's face right there is just killing me.
Right there.
Yeah, just like right there. He's just like, I'm loving it.
And you can see like, this is the kind of thing that I'll erase right here.
Go in and clean up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So now I'm gonna switch over to that actually. And then one thing I gotta do real quick, save as. I'm gonna go to my comic files folder and drop it into comics working, which is where I put all these black and white working files and I save them as PNGs. I heard somewhere that PNGs tend to like degrade in quality a lot slower if you like share them over and over again. You know how like a JPEG will get like all artifacted and degrade in quality like the more it's shared or uploaded?
Yeah.
PNGs apparently avoid that a little bit better, so I started doing everything as PNGs.
Awesome.
A few years back.
I also pretty much use PNG for everything.
All right, cool. And now I'm gonna pull my scanner off, put it down there. The device I'm using here is a Surface Pro 4. I'm just removing the keyboard so I can use my external keyboard because it's a little bit awkward to like use my hotkeys like down here like this. I'd rather have my keyboard off to the left like that.
That's I had a Surface for a short amount of time before I eventually got an iPad, and that was one of the things that was like really awkward for me, was to do hotkeys like right in front. I had like my hand like up to my chest and then was like painting, you know.
Yeah.
And I usually, like when I'm working on my desktop, I have my my keyboard like to the left of my tablet, so it was a lot easier. I just went and got like an external thing and did it when I had that.
Yeah, it's nice. And then I mentioned yesterday, what I typically do when I'm at home is I work with a Wacom tablet on a big monitor, but then when I'm on the go, I unplug this, which actually serves as my desktop computer as well, because I use a dock to like hook it up to my monitor and keyboard.
Right on.
But when I'm on the go, rather than bring my Wacom tablet around with me, I can just work directly on the screen here and just have my keyboard off to the side.
Right on.
And it's actually kind of nice, and it makes me tempted to get like a Cintiq or something.
The Cintiqs are really nice.
Yeah.
They're super cool. And I always tell people, like, if that's the kind of thing you're into, you're definitely into like doing art like for the long run. It's definitely a nice investment.
Yeah.
For sure. Also, we are just a minute away from the Chat and Win, which I'm super excited about. So if you guys are chilling over on YouTube, definitely head over to behance.net/live. Come hang out in the Behance chat with us, because if you're active in chat over here, one of the chat members will actually be chosen at random to win a prize, which is going to be super awesome. We've got an epic Tattly pack of all kinds of tattoos and cool things for you guys to win today. And then after that, we will be diving into the last time that we have for the challenge entries this week.
So right now, same process as yesterday. I'm using the marquee tool to just highlight big areas of the comic, to delete any anything like left over from the scanning process, or any like little pen strokes or whatever that might have fallen outside of the lines.
Robbing these characters of their beauty marks.
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. That's what I'm doing. So yeah, I go in with the marquee to do that, to like do the big stuff. Oops. I don't want that, do I? Almost lost the entire comic right
Welcome in, Anna Nelson. Good to see you.
there. Now I'm using the crop tool to center the comic within the artboard. So it's got a nice even border around every side.
We actually have our fireworks up, which means that it's Chat and Win time. So we're going to take a break real quick, and we are going to show our epic Chat and Win video, and then we're going to come back and choose a winner. Woo! Welcome back, everybody. So excited. So in just a few moments here, we are going to have our winner of the Chat and Win. But in the meantime, we've got some folks wondering what you think about people getting tattoos of your comics.
Totally fine by me.
Totally fine.
Yeah.
Totally fine. I'm imagining somebody with like a little Kevin.
Yeah.
Just like on their arm or something.
I have people like message me from time to time and be like, "Is this okay? Can I have permission?" You don't even have to ask; just go for it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sabrina Gravel, thank you so much for being here. But you are the winner of the Chat and Win. Congratulations. Super awesome. If you just keep an eye on your Behance, somebody will contact you shortly with information on how you can claim your Tatley prize. It's going to be so cool. There's so many different like things in here too that I'm super pumped about. It's like a bunch of like cool stuff, but it looks like it's also going to be like some like technical like Photoshoppy.
Oh yeah, I like all that.
Stuff,
like what is that? CMYK circles. That's pretty cool.
Super rad. So it's going to be awesome. I'm excited for you. I'm a little bit jealous, just slightly, just a tiny bit.
Okay. Reza, your style of comics would be great for stick and poke tats. Thanks, Kyle.
Honestly, I would be down for like some temporary tattoos of your characters for sure.
Maybe I'll look into that. So now I'm going into like a little bit more detail erasure work. Taking out all these. Again, I'm using the marquee tool there. I'm going to switch back and forth between the marquee tool and my eraser. And sometimes I'll flip my pencil over and use the eraser on the end, and sometimes I'll just bring up the eraser tool and use the nib to do like more detailed eraser work. Oops.
Yeah, for me, I typically just use the eraser tool and like the nib because I feel like whenever I flip over my stylus, because it's wider, I feel like it's like I don't feel like I'm as accurate as I want to be whenever I'm using it, even though it probably like isn't that way, you know, it's probably just fine. But I think it's the same for me. It's the same sort of thing as like using the regular like standard brush sometimes versus like using a chalk brush. Obviously I'm putting the same stylus to the same screen, but when it's the chalk brush, it feels textury for some reason. So I use it.
And we discussed a little bit yesterday about like emulating that feel of felt tip pens or pencils on a screen. Yeah. And to mention Shauna again, I like was playing around with her. She has a Surface as well, and I noticed she has some kind of like screen protector on it that makes the screen feel like nice and sticky, like paper.
Got that drag.
Yeah,
on it,
and I was like, I should get that. That's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So I feel like there's just like a few more little things that I want to get rid of. And I don't really go in any specific order necessarily. I'm not like I have to spend X amount of time getting rid of all the accidental marks first before I do anything else. I'll like just kind of jump around the paper, and anytime I notice something, I'll clean it up.
Right on.
But then what I typically do first, after I've cleaned up most of the board, is I'll go in and center my text and then clean up the speech bubbles. So this text is more or less pretty centered here. Looks pretty good. I'll use the marquee to kind of like make sure this is roughly on the same line. Like I don't want a letter hanging out down here or something like that.
Yeah, even them all out a little bit.
Yeah, and sometimes when I'm inking it by hand, it's easy to like accidentally write diagonally or something like that. So this is a good time.
I was actually wondering like how because whenever I am writing, like if I'm doing like something similar, like some kind of comic, which isn't super often, but you know, every once in a while I'll do it. I always write at a slant. Yeah. And for you, for the most part, I feel like you've had enough practice that it looks pretty darn straight.
It looks pretty straight. Yeah. I have in the past like penciled out lines, like ruler lines. And sometimes if I'm drawing a lot of text or something, I'll still do that. But overall, I really like going for, even though I'm cleaning it up and making sure it's all roughly lined up, I do like that natural look of everything not being perfectly lined up and not looking too much like a typed font or something. So the more handwritten it looks, the better. So here I just pulled my text out of this box so I can like see it a little bit more clearly without any distractions inside, just so I can line this all up. So I'm going to use my warp tool, transform warp. And I mentioned before that this is like my most used tool basically in Photoshop, the warp tool, and that I definitely need to bind it to a hotkey.
And just kind of bump it, yeah.
Yeah.
That looks nice.
Because I use it a lot. And so there, I just like straighten out that line. I can go back and show you all like how that might have looked before. So it was all warped, and now it's like nice and straight.
Very
like that.
nice, yeah. I have some hotkeys of my own that I've had to bind as well for things that I use a lot. I think the one that I use the most, I bound flip canvas horizontal to nice. Control Shift A, because it's right there next to Control Shift S, which I was using anyway, so it's easier for me to remember.
Yeah.
So then I can just like flip my canvas back and forth whenever I'm painting to get
nice.
a different look at
stuff.
But sometimes there are some really fantastic things that don't actually have their own hotkey, but you can always go into the settings and route your own if you need to.
Yeah, and so typically I'm using the marquee to grab those little sections. But then sometimes I'll use the lasso if I want to grab like a smaller section.
Yeah, like
and then I'm just using, when I do the warp like that, it sometimes leaves a little white space, like a little gap where the marquee was.
That, yeah.
And so I'll just go in and fill that out, or fill that in with the pencil tool.
Right on.
And I mentioned previously that I don't use any custom brushes. I just use the default pencil tool because it looks close enough to my pen strokes. And I'm typically not like drawing characters or writing text with it. I'm just using it to fill in those little gaps and make corrections or whatever. So I don't really need anything too complex to do that. I can just use the default tool.
Yeah, Shauna was talking earlier today too about how great the pencil tool is as well, and how it looks like very close to the kind of like texture-y brush that she uses. So you guys have both convinced me that I need to maybe try using that a little bit more, because I really like it.
For just like digitized line art, it matches pretty closely. And my pen strokes are pretty basic. I just use Sakura Micron pens. And once those are digitized, they basically just look like digital pen strokes.
Right on.
I feel like this is still a little bit off, so I'm going to go in and mess with that.
Gilead Hernandez, welcome in. Good to see you, man.
And then you can see there's one of those little gaps from where the marquee tool was when it was transforming. So you just go in and fill that in.
It's actually super satisfying to watch you fill them in.
Yeah.
So
that's the perfectionist in me. Oh, here's one that I missed. And then occasionally, like my pen strokes will look a little bit too toothy like this. So I'll go in and get real detailed and just erase like the more prominent ones.
Right on.
But overall, that one's looking pretty good right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop the text back in.
Sabrina's like, would you say the lines are poorly drawn?
In fact, Sabrina, I might say that. And then, now that I've dropped it back in, I'm going to use the marquee to measure and just make sure that this is all roughly centered within the box. So yeah, I would say the marquee and the warp tool are probably my most used components of Photoshop, and the pencil.
Right on. Yeah, I can see that, like I was saying earlier, there's so much that goes into cleaning this up, and your workflow seems to work super nicely for this.
Yeah, I've gotten used to it.
Did you at one point ever have a different technique for maybe cleaning up, and then this is just what you arrived at?
I had. Years ago, I used to use I forget what the program was called. It was called like ViewScan or something. And it was a scanning application that would like somehow automatically clean up, or it would, like as you were scanning it, you could have an option to take out all the blues and like clean it up automatically. But then for some reason, they removed that feature from the program. And so
You're like, what do I do?
yeah, exactly. So then I looked up this guide for how to take away like blue lead pencil and clean up a hand illustrated drawing, and I can't remember where I got that guide from, but it's definitely helped me a lot.
Awesome, awesome.
I probably have it saved on my computer somewhere.
Also, we've got about 19 minutes until the challenge submission deadline. This is going to be our last challenge submission deadline of the week, because tomorrow we are not doing the Adobe Live challenges. The XD Daily Creative Challenges will still be going on, but tomorrow during the streams, we're actually going to be doing portfolio reviews instead of reviewing the challenge entries. So those of you who are interested in potentially getting your portfolio reviewed on stream, start kind of working on your Behance portfolies. If you have some work that you like that you haven't uploaded, maybe take the time to do it today and tomorrow, and get those polished up. Tomorrow there will be a new tab in place of our challenge tab that you can use to submit your portfolios to us. And every segment we're going to choose a couple of them to go over. It's a lot of fun. We also go to space, actually, which I don't know if you've seen us go to. You're going to be going to space tomorrow.
Oh wow, I'm really excited about that.
It's going to be great. Always fun to go to space for the first time. So.
Yeah, I heard there's some super rich guy is sending a bunch of artists to the moon.
What?
Yeah.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, it's happening.
No way.
I think if you just Google super rich guy sending artists to the moon, you'll find the story. I feel like Elon Musk is involved somehow.
Oh, probably.
He's not the super rich guy that's doing that. It's somebody else like using his space resources to do that.
Yeah, he's just helping.
Yeah, he's just helping.
It's like, because I feel like Elon would probably just be like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah,
Let's just go for it. Let's do that.
But I feel like I'm probably not going to get selected to be one of those artists to go to the moon. So
honestly, if it were up to me, I would definitely choose you, because I feel like Kevin needs to go to space.
I appreciate it. I think I'm busy that day though, that they're doing the moon mission.
Oh really?
So yeah.
Is that what you're gonna tell them?
That's what I'm gonna tell them when I get the invite.
Yeah, when you get the invite, or when you don't. Like, oh, it's fine. I have plans that day. I can't. I would have had to cancel on them anyways.
So yeah, I don't want to be rude, so I'm just announcing it in advance. I'm busy.
You can't
the
make
day
it.
of the moon mission. Sorry.
But you don't know what day it is.
I'm busy most days.
It's awesome. Kyle Ferson says that can go horribly wrong or horribly well. Come on, guys.
The moon mission?
Yeah.
Yeah. It could go like either way, I guess. I mean, this is all like I don't know. I don't think a lot of people have been to the moon recently, as far as I'm aware.
But I mean, like, how fantastic would it be to have memes on the moon?
That would be, I don't know. I think
really awful.
I think if we're gonna start like a new like colony on a new celestial body, we should maybe leave memes out of it.
Yeah, maybe not bring anyone who thinks memes are funny.
Maybe just leave the internet out of it and just start over again from scratch with traditional media.
Yeah, just just have like a very
we can bring
very
Photoshop,
old timey town.
Yeah.
Photoshop only.
Photoshop would be
not the impact
available.
font, because that's what they use for all of the memes. Sorry, we can't do it.
Only Futura.
Yeah, and memes don't look the same unless you use impact and caps. So I don't think anybody would settle for a different font. I think they'd just be like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
We won't do this.
I'd love to see a Wes Anderson movie set on the moon. I was about to say I'd love to see a sci-fi Wes Anderson movie, but then wasn't Isle of Dogs kind of sci-fi, or at least like
I never saw that.
I didn't see it either. That's the only Wes Anderson movie I haven't seen in theaters like ever, or didn't see in theaters. So I just used the transform tool to kind of like, I noticed this was a little bit crooked, so I just shifted it a bit.
Kind of.
Yeah, just using the marquee and then Command T to transform.
Awesome. Noelle says, if they do or do not invite you to the moon, just to announce that you can't go because you need some space.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm liking the dad jokes and the puns, guys.
That's great.
I'm loving them. I'm interested. This is the first in many months I've taken out my Wacom Bamboo tablet. Thanks for the inspiration, y'all. Oh, I'm so excited.
Nice.
How cool. What are you going to work on, Simon? Are you gonna do some poorly drawn lines? That's the popular thing to do this week.
Yeah.
Impact with caps and a black outline. Yes, that is the meme typeface.
Okay, so I've got the first 2 panels. The text has been cleaned up. Now I'm going to do the last panel. There's obviously no text in the 3rd panel, so that's a little easier. I'm just going to go ahead and cut that out, and then do the same thing here with my warp tool.
Very cool. It looks so much like, because when I see it, before you start doing all of this, I'm like, oh, that looks really good. And then you start like chipping away at them, and I'm like, oh, wait, that looks really good.
There's a lot of things to be done.
That's awesome.
I would be curious to see if anybody even noticed if I just posted a comic, like, and I colored it without cleaning it up at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
just to see what would happen.
Yeah, if people are like, were you drunk when you did this one? Or... and I'll just be like, no,
maybe
that's
that
how
one
it
guy,
naturally looks.
That one guy who was upset with where you put the ant legs, he would be like, this is much lower quality than the previous comic. Totally. I'm sorry. And just pester you about it until you upload a cleaner version.
They're just keeping me on my game, I guess.
Yeah.
Keeping me on my toes.
It's good. It's good.
But I don't know. I don't know if people would necessarily notice. I think it would be cool to do like a new webcomic, maybe just like a little side thing where I don't clean it up at all and just do it like totally fluid, and like post it the way that it comes out.
I think that'd be cool.
It might be kind of cool.
Yeah, people. I think people might enjoy seeing you post some of the work like before it's like polished and pristine.
Yeah,
pristine, you know?
I do post on my Patreon. I occasionally post like process work, and I have shown like I'll take pictures of the inked comics before they've been edited and put those up on my Patreon.
Very cool. That's awesome. I was just about to ask you if you made videos or anything that where people could see some of your process.
No, not until this. These are going to be the first videos to really show my process like this.
That's super cool. That's awesome. But I think you know, kind of like what we were talking about yesterday. A lot of people, they see somebody's finished work, and they assume that that person just went from point A to point B, just like kind of beelined for the finish, and a lot of people don't know all of the different, you know, work and steps and things that go into a person's process, because we're kind of only looking at the portfolios of our favorite artists, right?
Totally, you just see like the finished work.
Yeah, and then you're kind of just like, well, you know, he did this and it looks super good and it's got that nice aesthetic and everything, and then when we ourselves like sit down to do our own work, it's hard to keep in mind that even though we're kind of going for maybe the same vibe as somebody else, or we're inspired by another person, that they kind of have their kinks and stuff to work out in their work as well.
Totally.
But it might be really cool, like, to let everyone see like maybe a different style from you. I definitely would be interested.
Sometimes I think about how like traditional cartoonists from past generations cleaned up their work or whatever, and I think it would have been much harder, obviously, to do a lot of these like corrections and cleanup work if you are just working like on pen immediately and having to send it into your editor or whatever. Like Bill Watterson of Calvin and Hobbes, you know, he didn't have Photoshop, so his stuff probably had to look like pretty close to done from the first draft.
That's crazy, yeah. I don't know if I could do that. Like, now that I have like the gift of Photoshop, like to imagine myself like doing things from start to finish and then turning it in, and having to have like somebody tell me like, oh, this you know, this part needs to be changed, and you're like, how?
Yeah,
you know?
Totally.
They kind of did that in that strange movie that came out, The Shape of Water, where that guy painted like this huge big like ad of like a family like eating Jell-O.
And he was like, make the Jell-O green or red or something.
Yeah,
and I was like, how would you do that?
How would I do that? I just painted this onto canvas.
But that's how they would just have to like start over.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So Photoshop is definitely a magical gift.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me, going back to that question about what comic strips I liked as a kid or when I was younger. That reminds me, I really liked the comic strip Life in Hell by Matt Groening, who's the creator of The Simpsons. And
Yeah.
he started out as an alt-weekly not a web cartoonist, an alt-weekly cartoonist. And like, speaking of, you know, finding imperfections in your artwork or whatever, what I remember really liking about his artwork was that it didn't feel like super finished or corrected. It just felt like very raw, and there were like, you know, little imperfections, or like the lettering would be crooked, or I don't know, the characters wouldn't look perfect, like they'd be done on a computer or something. Whereas a lot of the comics I read in the Sunday comics or whatever would be like, look perfect, like at the finished stage. So that comic kind of gave me a sense that I didn't have to be like a super accomplished, classically trained artist to draw comics. It was like I could just, you know, draw something simple and just have like good writing and jokes, and that what needed to be the main focus.
Another show that was very much like what you're describing was Home Movies.
Oh yeah.
If you ever watched Home Movies.
Yeah, that was Adult Swim, right?
I think it was on Adult Swim for a time, yeah.
That was good.
But the guy who animated that actually used to stream with us on the Adobe channel, and he was like talking about like all the cool terms that they had for everything, and I like their unfinished look, like their like clean and not like super polished style was the squiggle vision. Which is basically like a pretty good description for that style, that feel that they had. But I think that they did it really good, and then we also talked about Our Real Monsters. They definitely have like that weird like kind of it was like a strange style compared to all the other shows that were on, where they were going for like the clean stuff, like compared to Fairly Odd Parents or like Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, where everything was like really sleek, you know. And then Real Monsters was like very much like somebody did it with like a blotty pen or something, which was really cool to see.
Yeah, it was, that show was like, the writing was very surreal, the stories were surreal, the subject matter was just absurd and surreal, and then I think the art style like just matched all of that beautifully.
Oh, totally, definitely.
But it's funny you mentioned Foster's Home. That was actually another one of those ones that like was catering to my younger brother's generation that I got to watch with him and just absolutely loved.
It's hilarious, yeah, it was a good one.
I actually got to meet the guy who created that show in LA a few months ago, and that was a really cool experience.
That sounds awesome. I bet that was cool.
Yeah.
Dave Sancho says, do you like Joan Cornella's work?
Yes.
Think, yeah.
I think I actually mentioned him on the stream yesterday when we were talking about comics that have no words. Yeah, I think Joan Cornella's work is incredible, definitely.
And then we are also getting a question again about your tablet and what kind of tablet it is.
So this is a Surface Pro 4 that I'm working on. And I mentioned before, so I use it like this, where I draw directly on the screen when I'm like traveling or on the go or whatever, and it's just like a really nice, compact laptop / tablet that I can stick in my bag super easily, and also turns into a drawing tablet. But then when I'm at home, I hook this up to a dock and work on a full like 23-inch monitor with my Wacom tablet and my keyboard.
So then this legit is like your desktop computer.
This is my desktop, yeah. There's something called a Surface Dock that you plug it into, like into the power port, and it gives you like, I don't know, an Ethernet connection and like 6 USB ports and all this stuff. So
that's awesome.
I used to have a big clunky PC like tower, and when I started moving around and wanting to travel more, I realized that I really couldn't take that with me. So I sold it for parts and bought this.
Right on. Yeah, I've got a tower. Mine looks like a little mini fridge.
Yeah, it was actually, I kind of miss it though for the power. Like this kind of lacks in power a little bit, especially because I work at such high resolution. I'll occasionally have crashes where I just like, will have like 8 documents open, all 600 DPI, and the computer just won't be able to handle it.
A little hard to deal with.
But I've been thinking about building like what is it, mini ITX build, like something small and compact that I could potentially carry with me.
Right on.
But as far as like traveling and getting around and having like a mobile art studio this thing is pretty rad.
Awesome. Also, we've got just over 4 minutes until the final challenge submission deadline of the week. So if you have not submitted your challenge entries, definitely get those in fairly soon, folks, because me and Reza are going to go over them. And then today, after 3 p.m., one lucky winner will be messaged with details on how they can claim their prize of 1 year of Creative Cloud.
Nice. That's a great prize.
Yeah, I think it's spectacular.
Yeah.
It's really awesome too because like so many of the people that jump in here are learning, and I've seen a lot of people actually mention that they're using a trial at the moment. So that's a great way to just kind of jump in, enter the contest real quick and try your luck at maybe getting the full thing.
Definitely.
Be cool. Miriam wants to know if anyone has any podcast suggestions. You were saying that you actually listen to podcasts, don't you?
I listen to podcasts when I work sometimes. My favorite one currently is a podcast called 99% Invisible that's based out of Oakland. And it's a art and design podcast. And they do, all kinds of cool stuff about design that you wouldn't necessarily think of. Like, they're talking about the design of like a commonly used chair or something. And it just kind of makes you take a closer look at like the designed world around you and all the products that we sort of take for granted. And so that's kind of opened my eyes to things like industrial design and typography a little bit more, logo design. And so, yeah, that's one that I would definitely recommend. As far as like news and current events podcasts, I've been listening to, I think it's called The Daily, the New York Times podcast with Michael Barbaro.
Awesome.
And that's been cool. They go like pretty in depth on like one story every day, and then they give you like a little recap of the day's news.
Very cool.
What else? I really like history podcasts.
Right on.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of good history podcasts out there. Hardcore History is pretty good.
I've been listening to history books, like audiobooks myself recently, yeah. So yeah, those are pretty cool. I think it's nice to just like listen to a podcast or listen to like a long book or something, or like you were saying yesterday, listen to like some classical music or something too, because it's kind of just like long. It's not like a 2.5 minute song that you eventually have to change, if you don't listen to it on repeat.
Like somebody on the chat yesterday mentioned just generally music without lyrics is really good to work to. There's this playlist on Spotify called Deep Focus I found that plays, I don't know, like Boards of Canada type stuff.
Oh, I think I know. I think I've listened to that before.
Yeah, I found that really good for working too.
I agree.
And so I'm gonna go ahead and move this. The speech balloons are pretty much all cleaned up right now. I'm gonna move this one over a little bit more so
it's obvious it's first.
Very clear that's supposed to be red first.
Yeah.
I also feel like this guy is kind of extending out a little bit too far. So I'm gonna move this ant over like a centimeter or so. And then I'm just gonna go in and then copy this line and scoot it over to fill in that gap that I made.
Nato Ramos says
and now I'm merging layers.
He changed his mind in the last minute and uploaded his submission just now, like randomly. Just
okay, cool.
Going for it.
Those are filling in this gap here.
You know what you do that I like never do, and I need to do it more often, is like when you select things, you just kind of bump it over with the hotkeys. I always drag, and then like I'm holding shift trying to get it to snap to where I'm dragging it from, and it doesn't always do it like as accurately as I want to do it. So I need to do that a little more often. I'm
gonna do the same thing with this panel and move this character over a bit. And yeah, I'm just using the arrow keys here just to bump it over. With the marquee selecting the content.
That's good stuff.
I don't know if you all can hear my keyboard clicking very loudly, but this is we were talking about this yesterday. This is a mechanical keyboard.
Super satisfying.
And it's like kind of small and compact, and I can travel with it. And it's just like really satisfying to click the keys, and it makes me think of like using Windows 95 as a kid, where they would have like a bunch of sound effects of like.
Yep.
Oh, I just did something crazy there.
Oh no. We are actually at the deadline for the challenge submission. I maybe will give like another minute and everything just to kind of refresh and make sure everything has come through. But then we will take a gander. I just said take a gander. I'm embarrassed. I was trying to not say that live because it's like one of the cheesier things I say.
That's like a grandma word.
Yes, yep. Cat's out of the bag now. Surprise, guys, I'm old. But yeah, we're going to take a look pretty soon in a few moments. And then we'll jump back into doing that. I think we've got a lot of them. So I hope you guys get your submissions in. Like I said, this is the very last time that you guys can enter the challenge for this week, unless you are participating in our awesome daily creative challenges. If you guys are unfamiliar with the daily creative challenges, you guys can always join the creative challenge Slack that we have for you guys. And you can also tune in tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. Pacific, because we actually have Marissa in with a quick little stream for the creative challenge, which is awesome. So you can kind of follow along with her if you want to. You too, Anna. Awesome. But yeah, so let's jump into some challenge submissions now.
Cool.
See what we got going on. All right, so this is from Hazal. Hazal, I feel like this is maybe cut off a little bit. I don't know if you want to resubmit, because I feel like we're not getting the full effect of what is supposed to be underneath this here, but it's looking cool. It's kind of interesting here with all the different textures and stuff. We got one from Nato Ramos that he said that he just submitted, which is cool. Connecting is everything. And I love that you kind of used our symmetry tool, which was the theme. Everybody has to do like something with the symmetry tool.
Cool.
He's got like this really cool background that he did with symmetry, it looks like, and he kind of did like an interesting glitch effect on it, which is neat. And then on top of that, asymmetrically, with the text, kind of did his thing there, which is really nice. We've got one from Stephen Matthew, which is cool. For a second, I thought that this was like a guy, but now it's kind of like a Rorschach. It's kind of looking like a skull, and then it's kind of looking like a couple of dogs to me. I'm not exactly sure, but it's still very cool. Still really neat. Nice texture. This is from Alexander, and this is really interesting. This is like a nice kind of like halftone brushes, maybe, I think.
Reminds me of the alien from Independence Day.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the eyes and the neck and how it's like kind of like up.
Yeah, and like the big like
the head formation. Yeah. It also kind of looks like a red panda to me, or like one of those, those red squirrels that have like the little black floof on the top of their ears.
Yeah, totally.
Those are really cool. But this is awesome. So well done. Very interesting. And next we have this from NP. This is cool. This is like a whole illustration here done with the symmetry tool there. That's really rad. I love the texture. It's got like kind of like a nice charcoaly texture going on. It reminds me of Negasonic Teenage Warhead, actually. If you guys have seen like the Deadpool movies, she's a really cool character.
Totally.
So that's beautiful, man. This is great. I love it. And then we've got Garcia Clara, this pretty butterfly. Don't you think it kind of looks like it's made out of jewels?
Yeah.
Or something? It's kind of like a cool...
I see leaves.
Yeah.
Or amber.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And then Jordan Crawford. It's got like a nice paper texture behind there. Some experimentation with some Adobe lettering here with the symmetry tools. Very cool. And then we have Eric Cruz.
That's cool.
With another illustration. I'm loving the illustrations. He's all bundled up.
Looks like a Gorillaz character.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Another sort of like animation thing that really inspired me, at least when I was a little kid, is all the Gorillaz music videos and stuff.
They're cool.
Definitely. We've
the
got
Gorillaz inspire me in general. I like listening to their music sometimes when I'm
totally
working.
Clint Eastwood. It's hands down like my favorite song. I feel like that's
Absolutely.
kind of cliche for Gorillaz fans, but it's so good.
All their songs are so good. They're all cliches at this point.
For sure, yeah. And then we have this from Anel, which is like some awesome designs and texture using the symmetry tool. I kind of like how this one, even though like she used symmetry, she also kind of offset it and like added some different colors in places too, which is nice.
Yeah.
Because it's not centered at all, which is great. And then this is really cool.
Wow.
From Joe Cook.
It's like some Baphomet.
Yeah.
Something going on there.
Like almost tarot card-esque too, which is really cool.
It looks like the skull that Kevin found. That's actually what I modeled that skull off of. It was supposed to be like a goat skull, like demonic. Yeah.
That's my favorite one. What did I tell you? I'm digging up skulls. So good. And then we also can kind of briefly go through some of the ones that we had earlier, which was really cool. Got one from Afroja, Aaliyah, another one from Jordan. We got like a lot of.
I really like the colors on that one.
This one right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really neat. Kind of reminded me of like a lot of the like African art actually. This one was really cool. This kind of looks like an album cover or something to me.
Yeah, totally.
And we've got like a lot of really fantastic things.
Nice job, everybody.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for entering into the challenge. I wish you all the best of luck. Like I said, after 3 p.m. Pacific today, one of you lucky challengers will receive a message with details on how to claim your prize. Which is a free year of Creative Cloud. And then tomorrow during the stream,
like those cats.
The cats, the Just Dance.
That's cute.
Tomorrow during the stream, we will actually announce who won. So we got a Paul. By the way, I don't know if you saw
that pug was really good.
Yeah, the pug is great.
Oh yeah, there's Paul.
Yeah, there's a little.
Paul, you've got some fan art over here.
It's good. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. We have got a little, like around 20 minutes left, so probably need to jump into your last steps of your thing there.
Let's see if I can finish this. If I don't, I'll continue it over to the next session. So one thing I actually just noticed is that, and I don't know if anybody would necessarily notice this, and some people might just leave it in, is that the ant's head in the left panel is shaped quite differently from the ant's head in the right panel, just in this back area here. So I think I like the shape of the one in the right panel a little bit more. It's like angles down to the right, so I'm going to try to make it a little bit more like that. Right so I'm just going to go ahead and grab the antenna and pull that off. And then I'm using the lasso tool right now, and then I'm going to just lasso the left side of the ant's head. And actually, let me just fill this in real quick so it kind of moves as one piece. So just use my pen tool to fill that in, or sorry, pencil tool. And then I'm going to go ahead and lasso the left side of the ant's head, edit, transform, warp, and I'm going to try to make it look a little bit more like the one in the right. And yeah, it's all about with the transform tool. If you just grab one area and pull it, it's gonna like angle out to that area. So you got to kind of like even it out a little bit and grab a few different areas that you're trying to, of like the piece that you're trying to warp.
I do use it every once in a while. It's actually really kind of fun too to like to mess with it.
Yeah, I came across it at some point. It just became like my go-to tool for pretty much everything. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the right side of the ant's face and kind of like angle it down so it looks a little bit more like the one in the right panel. And then something else I just noticed is that this line looks a little bit weak. So I'm going to clean up this, and then I'm going to go in with the pencil and just kind of like fill it in a little bit more.
Right on. Looks good. Wouldn't it have been better to grab the whole head? I think, like, we were kind of talking yesterday about how sometimes, you know, in a person's process, there's definitely maybe easier ways to do things or like seemingly easier way to do things, or seemingly better way to do things, but sometimes you kind of just like do what's comfortable for you, or the way that you enjoy to do it in the first place, you know?
Sometimes the thing that's most efficient is the less efficient thing that you are used to doing.
Yeah, totally. I think that...
And then I'm just putting the antenna back on.
We were saying yesterday, too, that like, even though something might be quicker, you know, and you might maybe utilize other different, you know, techniques when you're on like a serious time crunch or something. But even though something might be quicker when you're kind of doing things by your own pace, sometimes the way that makes you happier is the best way to do things, you know, the way that you enjoy doing it the most.
But then it's definitely worth it to like, you know, if there is something that's like significantly more efficient, it's probably worth it to like spend the time learning it.
Definitely, definitely.
Like that little trick you taught me with the eyedropper tool. I should probably get used to doing that because that seems like it would save some time. It's
a lot of fun to do it that way, because I used to like be using the hotkey to get to the dropper and then have to go back to doing the brush. But then I found that I actually color drop so many times during a painting, like especially when I'm blending, if I'm trying to like make skin look realistic or something, having it where I can just like hit it with my finger every single time and just like color drop and just go for it, and just like it's almost like there's no hiccup whatsoever in my process like after I started using that. So spread the word.
One thing I find myself doing a lot is going in and editing the eyes on my characters, because they're typically just these little dots, but sometimes even just like the slightest angle on a dot can change the emotion in the eye. So for instance, if suddenly this is like that, he looks sad. Whereas if it's perfectly round, there's just like that kind of blank absence of expression that kind of communicates whatever the joke is supposed to communicate. And so I might do the same thing on this one, just kind of like make it a little bit more circular.
I like how blank it looks, like he's just staring into the abyss thinking.
Yeah, exactly. It's supposed to be kind of like off in his own world.
Like, why?
And then, yeah, what he's saying in the last panel is, why do this to me, friend? Or what he's thinking. He's like, I thought we were
buds.
I thought we were buds.
Why are you doing
How could you stab me in the back like this? And then I'm just going to move that up. I feel like those speech bubbles, whatever you call those, were a little bit too close to the eye. So it was like too many circles, and that eye might get lost in those 3 circles. So I just moved it a little bit further up so it's clear that it's like coming from his brain area. If that's where are ants' brains in their heads? I don't know.
I think so.
Maybe it's in the thorax.
So. It could be in the thorax.
I'm gonna have my resident ant expert chime in at some point and tell me.
To let you know the anatomical location of
I'm
the
also
ant
just
brain.
noticing that the eyes are looking to the right in this panel and looking more straightforward in this panel. So I'm just gonna use my marquee tool to like measure the distance to make sure that the expression. So yeah, the eyes are actually a lot closer together. Gotcha. So I'm going to move this eye a bit so it's still clear that he's looking at his friend over there.
Sabrina says, is there a comic of yours that is your favorite? She says hers is Slow Revenge of Worm.
I actually really love that one.
I'm gonna look it up real quick just so that I can see.
I like that one a lot. So that would probably be one of my favorites. I also really like one that I did called Klube. We can maybe pull that one up too. Or I can even just open them right here. Let's see.
Yeah, if you've got them. Yeah.
So this is Slow Revenge of Worm. Give everybody a
Twist
second.
of fate today, the worm will eat the bird. It takes a very long time. Wait, what does he say?
Nibble.
Nibble. The bird is patient.
So the bird is like accepting fate, basically.
It's just like, my time has come.
And then one that I also like to think that the bird is like being nice to the worm and being like, you can do this. Yeah. And then this is another one that I like.
Klube.
Also kind of dark.
Well, damn. Klube can reorder paper towels.
So that was, if it's not clear enough, that was a commentary on like Alexa type devices.
Yep.
I don't think anybody really needs those. I don't think they really do anything for us.
I have an Alexa, and the only thing that I actually use it for is to remind me when I have meetings and when I need to start stream and stuff, because sometimes I'll get sidetracked, and it's like a verbal thing in the room that's like, hey, stop zoning out.
Yeah.
You have a meeting in X amount of minutes, you know? But that's it. And I honestly, I get really freaked out because sometimes like I straight up unplug it unless I know I'm going to need it, because I'll be streaming and I'll be talking and then I'll look over and the light is on and I'm like, Big Brother's watching.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. It's
possible.
too weird for me.
I don't know. I feel like a lot of devices are just like selling us productivity and efficiency that we don't actually need. And so, yeah, I guess that's what I was going for with that Klube cartoon.
I think it definitely hits the mark.
Yeah.
It's great.
Thank you.
Okay, damn. Well, I don't know. Like, he was kind of like, I don't actually do. Yeah. Klube has no idea what to do next.
Anything meaningful.
It's good stuff.
Okay, so this is more or less now pretty much done. And one thing that you mentioned might be cool to do yesterday that I wasn't able to do was show like a side-by-side of this finished black and white versus the freshly scanned black and white. So
Yeah.
I've actually pulled that up now so you can see this is like the finished black and white. That's about what I want it to look like before I start coloring it. And this is what it looked like when I initially scanned it.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously there's all that graininess and the blue pencil is still visible, but then outside of that you can see the text isn't lined up. The lines are a little bit squiggly in a lot of places.
Totally.
There's some like overlap in a few different lines, and so
Yeah, it really does make all the difference, dude. Definitely.
so yeah, I really wonder like how much people would actually notice if I just basically took all the blue out of this and just posted it like this, colored. But yeah,
Should try it one day.
yeah, just try it one day and
just
see what happens.
See what happens. Yeah.
But yeah, I think this looks a little bit better and a little bit easier to read, and I guess it goes back to that idea of like not distracting from like the main premise of the comic or the joke, and in some cases, I guess like that really hand-drawn kind of messy look can contribute to the joke, but in some cases it might distract from it a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Jan Eric is making Siri jokes now in the chat. Siri, call me an ambulance. Okay, from now on, I will call you an ambulance.
That's Siri.
No, yeah. No, I am. I'm really trying, Anna, but it's just not working.
Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and we've got 10 minutes, right? I'm gonna save this into my full-size comics. Oh, do we need to do other stuff before 3?
We've already gone through the challenge submissions and
Okay,
stuff. I'll
cool.
have a few more, maybe announcements or things, but you've got
Sweet.
time to
I
kind
think
of
I should
just
probably be able to finish this.
go through your
So
colors.
now I'm gonna decide what color I want the ants to be. I think I'm gonna make them kind of like a, oops, I forgot, I gotta convert this to RGB color. I'm gonna make them kind of like a dark brown.
Okay.
Like a brown gray.
I'm glad you guys enjoyed the Siri voice. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think this looks like a pretty antish color.
That's a good ant color, yeah. See, the color hits my eyes weird, and so I look at that and I'm like, that's just like a nice earthy gray, but it's
Yeah.
definitely a brown.
Yeah, it's, I guess, and it probably depends on what kind of screen you're looking at it on. Like I noticed that like an iPhone screen versus like a standard monitor, the colors might look a little bit different or a little bit warmer.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna distinguish the other end and make it more of kind of like a lighter, like reddish or something. So it's clear that when you're going back and forth between the panels that there's like 2 different characters. Actually, I don't know if I'm gonna use that one. I might just make it a little bit closer to this guy.
Yeah, that looks good. You guys are. It's like holding it together. Jan Erik's being too crazy.
What's Jan Erik doing now?
I can't say it on stream. Because I don't, if anyone's going to get in trouble for that, it's Jan. It's not me.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Oh, wow. That Jan Erik.
Voodoo, your laugh and laughing talk voice reminds me of Christine Arth. I know. Christine is like one of my favorite people, and I have not seen her. I was hoping to see her while I was here. Maybe it'll happen. I don't know. I feel like the moment that we like come in contact with each other, we will instantly just like devolve into Yoda impressions. It's gonna be great. We'll form up into a more powerful Yoda impression together.
Right now I'm selecting a color for the ground. I want to use a grassy color, and I actually have one saved in my Poorly Drawn Lines swapped library here.
Right on.
That I typically use for my mouse characters. Let's see if that looks...
That actually looks pretty cool. I think it looks nice with it, yeah.
I think I might make it a little bit darker.
A little darker?
Just because they have very dark colors there, so let's see. I think that looks pretty good. And I'm going to do something for the sky. I think for the sky I'll probably just go sample from one of my old comics, like a sky color that I typically use. Let's see what I've got here. This is I've been using the blue from this comic for a long time.
Yeah. But you haven't saved it yet?
But I haven't saved it yet. I could actually do that right now, so...
I do that all the time.
Here, let's see. I'm pretty sure you just double-click it. Color libraries? No, how do you do that? Add to swatches. I'll call it, like, sky blue. And it's already added to my current library, and there you go. So now I have sky blue up in the top left corner here.
Right on.
Perfect. I've been meaning to do that forever, and now I just did it. And I think that looks pretty good. It looks like nice and bright. I guess I don't like the coloring overall on this comic. It's like a little bit too bland, but that's okay.
Yeah, it looks good though.
Yeah.
Looks awesome. We've got just a couple more minutes here.
Cool.
Before we take off, but that's looking awesome, man. That's so cool just to see you go through the process and kind of show everybody how you clean everything up. Neat to see like the origin and the evolution of all of these fantastic and famous comics. It's awesome.
Thanks.
But yeah, guys, thank you all so much for joining us today. It has been so spectacular having you here with us, and also having all of you guys in chat, entering in challenges and all that kind of stuff. Thank you, challengers, for entering, and good luck to all of you. I hope to be able to see who won tomorrow when we come into the studio. Before we do our goodbyes, let's check out the schedule real quick, kind of recap what we have been doing this week, and as well as what is to come. I know we had a daily creative challenge stream with Marissa Blair earlier this morning at 8:30, and then Temmie and Paul were here doing some awesome posters earlier today. Shauna and I have been doing some cool Harry Potter illustrations, and then Jake Armstrong and Paul been working on some cool animations, and then me and Reza have been closing out each day with some awesome comic strips, which has been really awesome. But yeah, it's been a good time.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome to see.
Thank you. I'll have another one tomorrow.
Yep. Don't forget, tomorrow we're doing portfolio reviews, so there's no more challenges left for the day, unless you are doing the daily creative challenges, which I highly recommend you check out. You guys can join the Slack and all that. And I look forward to reviewing portfolios tomorrow after we go to space.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to that.
After we go to space.
Can't wait.
Adios, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye.